Good morning. It is Friday, the 3rd of October 2025. You are watching Morning Brew on Politics Social. I am Graham Hughes. That button doesn't work. That was a good start, wasn't it? It was a good start to the show. Good, nice and smooth. Good morning, everyone. And I will try and make my name come up now. Yay, it worked. Hello to everyone in the chat. We've got Elle, we've got Chris, we've got Alistair, we've got Diz and Liam in there as well. We've got SG, hello. We've got Vendetta, Jenny, Sarah Davis, Chrissy. Listen, if you'd like to join our friends in the chat here, all you need to do is hit the subscribe button and wait for about a minute, and then you'll be able to join the chat. But don't be a troll. Don't be a racist. Don't be a homophobe, a transphobe, an anti-Semite. Don't be an Islamophobe. Don't be a gobshite. Let's just say, just don't be a bigot. Okay, don't be a bigot, because if you are a bigot on this channel, we will. If you're being a bigot, we will mute you and boot you. So today, I suppose we've got to talk about what happened in Manchester yesterday on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar. This was at the Heaton Park Synagogue in North Manchester. At 9:30 yesterday morning, an attacker crashed a black car into the synagogue gates, immediately jumped out with knives and began stabbing people. 2 people have been killed. 4 people are still in hospital, as far as I'm aware. There were shouts of "he's got a bomb." Armed police arrived a few minutes later, and the attacker was shot. And yeah, so you have a sacred day for Jews, which has been turned into a day of chaos and blood and fear. This is the kind of attack that British police and authorities have been fearing since the October 7th attacks in 2023, what they call a marauding terrorist attack scenario. It mirrors London Bridge and Westminster Bridge and other lone wolf style assaults in that involved a car, knife, chaos. Also, there was no chatter about this that they had picked up on. This guy wasn't on the watch list, although his first name was Jihad. So, you know, like, there were signs there, I believe. But yeah, two dead, 4 seriously injured, and hundreds desperately traumatized. This is a very most Jews go to synagogue, even if they don't go throughout the year. They'll go on Yom Kippur. Yeah, the synagogue was packed, and it's left the community in shock. With the police, the incident, the aftermath of the incident in which the bomb squad was called. Witness testimonies we've heard from elderly residents who were told to stay away from windows, and one journalist who was there at the synagogue described it like being in a war zone, which is somewhat ironic because that is what is going on right now in Gaza. And obviously there is going to be a link to Gaza in all this when we get down to it. I pretty much guarantee it. And yeah, we need to talk about that. So first of all, let's talk about anti-Semitism in Britain in general. 35% of Jews in a recent survey said they felt unsafe now living in the UK. That was up from 9% in 2023. Nearly half, 47%, see anti-Semitism as a very big problem. Again, that's up from just 11% in 2012. And 1/3 experienced at least one anti-Semitic incident in 2024. Now, I remember when I was young, so I went to school in Liverpool. It was an all-boys school until 6th form, and then in 6th form, we had girls coming from other schools, most notably King David, the Jewish school. and I fell in love with a Jewish girl, and we started dating. And I used to go around to hers for Friday night dinner and all that stuff. And I obviously I learned a lot during that relationship about Judaism. But one of the things that always I remember striking me at the time was the fact that they had to have security outside their synagogue. And I'm not talking about like, to stop some dickhead with a fucking spray can or something. I'm talking about like proper security in case someone meant them harm. And I suppose, yeah, I mean, there's always going to be neo-Nazis out there. And obviously, even in the 90s, when the peace process did seem to actually be moving, now the peace process has stalled for the last 25 years. We haven't seen much in the way of any big strides towards peace between Israel and Palestine. But back then, it did look like things were on the up, and maybe a peace was achievable in the Middle East, specifically in Palestine and Israel. And I just remember being shocked. That, like, do you really you have to have security? Oh my God. And I never really thought about it before. And this is my privilege. This is my white, Christian, nominally Christian upbringing. I was a choir boy in the local church at St. Mary the Virgin in West Derby Village. And we didn't have security. We didn't need it. We didn't have people who were atheists screaming at us going into church to pray. It was not. It was all very, I don't know, orange juice and cups of tea and biscuits. It wasn't something that I thought that I considered at all. And here I was, sort of, finding this out firsthand that no, we need security at the synagogue because otherwise bad things may happen. And here we are, almost 30 years later. No, actually, yeah, 30 years later. It's 1995, wasn't it? Fucking hell. And the situation has got even worse. It's got even worse. Maggie Pie, thank you very much for the 50 Swedish krona. That's very kind of you. I wouldn't mind an Israel that respects international law, but this version of Israel is a very different thing. It has nothing to do with ordinary Jews. Yeah, thanks for the super chat. And I'm going to come to this, Maggie Pie. I'm going to be talking about this and the impact of what Netanyahu's been doing on Jews, not just in Israel, obviously, but also around the world. There were over 1,500 incidents of anti-Semitism recorded in the first half of 2025, the second highest ever recorded after 2024, and nearly 1,000 of these incidents took place in London and Manchester alone. Earlier this year, anti-Semitic graffiti was daubed near synagogues, kosher restaurants, bus stops, and Britain's Jewish community is relatively small. In fact, it's not just relatively small. It's really small. It's less than 1.0. It's less than 0.5% of the population, but it feels under constant pressure. Since October the 7th, anti-Semitic incidents have doubled, and importantly, many Jews say anger over Israel's actions in Gaza are being displaced onto them, even though British Jews have no control over Netanyahu. And this collective blame game is exactly the same sort of phenomenon we saw after 9/11, in which everyday Muslims who had nothing to do with the Saudi attack on America, the Saudi plotted attack, the Saudi funded attack, the Saudi carried out attack on America, which led to the deaths of 3,000 Americans, which caused the death of 3,000 Americans. People in this country, people in America who had nothing to do with it but shared a religion with the attackers, were singled out, were asked to apologize on behalf of these people who've done this terrible thing, which is a bit like someone telling you, if you're Catholic, that you should apologize for the actions of Hitler because he was also a Catholic. Make it make sense. Paula, thank you very much. I'm really worried that there will be an incident with drones one day. Yeah, we do need to have more defenses against drones. That is absolutely true. Thank you for the super chat. And it is a big worry. The only thing I'd say about that, though, is that something as technologically advanced as that, I know it's not that technologically advanced, but still, it would leave a paper trail, and I don't think that someone could carry it out on their own. It couldn't be one of these lone wolf attacks where people keep what they're going to do in their heads. They don't discuss it on social media or between their friends on WhatsApp, and it just doesn't get picked up by the security services. But let's just talk about Netanyahu for a moment, Gaza, and the backlash against Jews. Now, I've spoken about this before. I did a whole episode a few months ago where I talked about the fact that incidents of anti-Semitism were on the rise, and that I blamed Netanyahu for that, for his actions in Gaza, in which tens of thousands of people have been killed, neighborhoods have been flattened, and there have been credible accusations of war crimes by the International Criminal Court. There's also been the UN using the word genocide after a report found that they believe that what is happening in Gaza right now is genocide. And this has this impact, which we discussed, the Jewish diaspora being blamed for Netanyahu's decisions. And don't forget, Netanyahu is only doing this. I know this sounds like really trite to say this, but he's genuinely doing this horrible shit to keep his arse out of jail, to keep himself in power, in the same way that tin pot dictators since the dawn of time have invaded a neighbor, started a war, started a battle against a civil war even in their own country, in order to stay in power, in order to deflect from the fact that Netanyahu is a wanted, not just a war criminal, but he's a wanted criminal in his own country. As soon as he's not prime minister anymore, he will stand trial for corruption. And he doesn't want to stand trial. He wants to stay in power forever, as all demagogues do. And Netanyahu's actions are making, as far as I'm concerned, and I'm willing to have that conversation with Jewish people who, are at the coalface on this, but I believe that Netanyahu's actions are making lives for Jewish people worldwide miserable and unsafe. And we saw this last week. There was a South Park episode which directly tackled the Gaza war. And sorry, spoilers for anyone who's not seen it, but it ended with Sheila Bukowski, Kyle's mum, storming into Netanyahu's office saying, "Just who do you think you are, killing thousands and wrapping yourself in Judaism as a shield?" And when I saw that episode earlier in the week, I actually applauded, because I'm with Sheila. I'm with Sheila on this. And then, this creates obviously a moral conflict for a lot of Jewish people. A JPR survey showed 51% of British Jews say Israel's conduct clashes with their Jewish values. So half of the people living here believe that what Israel is doing is not just wrong, but actually clashing with their deep-seated values that they take from Judaism. They think what Israel is doing is not Jewish, not following the tenets of the Jewish faith. And I guess this is where things get messy. I mean, many Jewish people feel torn between their cultural attachment to Israel, which is seen as a safe haven, a harbour for when things go to shit, wherever Jews might be around the world. They know they can always get citizenship of another country, that other country being Israel. Israel offers them that route to refugee status that might be denied in other countries. So if you're Jewish, you can get citizenship in Israel. Pretty much no questions asked. I know it's not entirely no questions asked, but pretty much that they see that as the safe place that they can flee to if things ever get too heated in wherever they live around the world. And like I say, many feel torn between this cultural attachment to Israel and a moral revulsion of Netanyahu's policies, or should I say crimes. Maggie Pie, thank you very much. That Jews get the blame for this is anti-Semitism. Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more, Maggie. Yeah. In the same way that Muslims getting blamed for 9/11 is Islamophobia. It's not on the Jewish people of this country or any other country to rein in Netanyahu or make excuses for him. And like I say, this is where things get messy. Criticizing Netanyahu isn't anti-Semitic in the same way that if I criticize Donald Trump, who purports to be a Christian, I'm not being anti-Christian. I don't feel like I'm being anti-Christian. Condemning the bombing of Gaza is not anti-Semitic. But when criticism crosses over that line into blaming Jews directly and attacking Jewish people for the crimes that the Netanyahu government is carrying out, or comparing Israelis to Nazis, and that's something that I think, or Israel to Nazis, which I always think is a line that we shouldn't cross. There's a few things that I think that we shouldn't do in this discussion to keep things to make it very clear that you are not anti-Semitic or you're not Islamophobic. There are certain things that I think that you should and shouldn't do. One of which is, for instance, I think that not considering Palestine as an independent state, or pushing it towards its state as an independent state. I see that as Islamophobic. These people have lived there for hundreds, thousands of years. I don't see why it can't be a state. It's like, well, they won't do well with it. They'll elect some dickheads. I mean, they might do, but the reality is that that's their own country. And in the status that they're in at the moment, it's not their own country in the same way that this is our own country. We have certain sovereign rules and regulations that guide how other countries may treat us. And again, when I talk about anything that they're doing over in Gaza, I will say genocide because that's what the UN report has said. I won't use the H word. I will not use and I don't use, if you notice on this channel, I don't use the word Zionism here either. And there's a reason for that because of the cultural connotations behind it. And also because if I use the word Zionism, it doesn't necessarily mean the same thing to you. There'd be kind of 100 people watching this channel right now. And for each of you, Zionism might mean something slightly different. Even to people who are self-purported Zionists, that might mean something different to them than it does to me or to somebody else who's an Israeli or even Jewish. I think it's a really, really unhelpful term. And it is used often as a shield by people who do not like Jewish people, in general, to be anti-Semitic. It genuinely is. And I know a lot of people use it not in that respect, but in the same way that I believe that Palestine has a right to be an independent state, I believe that Israel has the right to be an independent state, in the same way that Pakistan, which came into existence just a few months before Israel did, I think it was less than a year before Israel became a country. If you're going to complain about Israel being this ethno state or this one religion country, well, look at Pakistan, and then look at how Christians are treated in Pakistan. Look how Hindus, how Sikhs, how Zoroastrians are treated in Pakistan. It's not always great. But the fact that Pakistan is a country, and I'm not going to argue with that, even though some of the borders are contested, especially up in Jammu and Kashmir, contested against not just India but also China. All those things all come together. So the borders that are, unfortunately, the way they are through mistakes and stupidity and arrogance of history, and mostly the British, they are the borders that we have to live with. Okay, yeah. Chris C, thank you very much for the £5 super chat, mate. That's very kind of you. Israel has laid the blame for yesterday's attack on the feet of Starmer, accusing his government of failing to protect British Jews. Thanks for the super chat. I think that's absolute nonsense. I think the people who've failed to protect British Jews are the Israeli government. And this is very much, I know who you are, but what am I? Do you know what I mean? This is pathetic. of the Netanyahu government to respond like this, failing to protect. So you're going to engineer a situation in which Jewish people feel loads less safe because of what Israel is doing, and because they know they'll get the blame for what Israel's doing because it's the only Jewish state. And that's one of those things. It's like when crimes are committed in a particular Muslim country, the idea that all Muslims should be blamed for that is an absolute nonsense. The Islamic world stretches all the way from Morocco to West Papua. In Indonesia. I mean, there's the idea that they're all one monoculture and they all believe the same things and hold the same values is an absolute nonsense. And at least with, I suppose, the Muslim world, it's so vast that it is very difficult to say that something happening that Muslims are doing in Malaysia has any bearing on what Muslims are doing in Tunisia or Albania. I understand, that is clearly a nonsense, but Israel is just one quite small country. I think it's only got a population of about 16 million. It's tiny. So it's a lot easier. I'm just going to check on the population of Israel because I want to know. Oh God, it's even less than that. It's 10 million. It's 10 million. It's a very, very small country. Dark 4x4. Thank you very much for the £5 super chat, mate. That's very kind of you. I have many thoughts on these issues, and I'll leave a comment on this clip plus a linky that will hopefully explain my perspective and the issue. Thanks for that, Dark 4x4. And yeah, it is complex. It is difficult, and it is a bit of a quagmire to try and navigate because horrible things have happened. Horrible things have happened on both sides. But it does seem a little bit disproportionate now. We're coming to 2 years since the October the 7th attacks in 2023. And I think there's not many people out there who will argue that the response by Israel to what happened is anything less than incredibly disproportionate. But then at the same time, we could argue that the reaction to 9/11, the invasion of Afghanistan, the subsequent invasion of Iraq that had nothing to do with 9/11, and the hundreds of thousands of people who were maimed and killed as a result of those invasions and the aftershocks were completely disproportionate to what had actually happened on 9/11. Anyway, so yeah, as far as the security is concerned, I mean, synagogues across Britain have been on high alert now for a couple of years. I mean, they were already on alert most of the time. Police presence has been stepped up, but Jewish people shouldn't need armed guards just to pray in their house of worship. And attacks like this just fuel cycles of hatred. With anti-Semitism on one side and Islamophobia on the other, and this is why it just becomes a vicious circle, one that seems increasingly difficult for us to be able to break out of. And we need a dialogue. We need to have we need to find ways of negotiating this situation that we're in without falling into the trap of the blame game of Netanyahu's policies, giving fuel to anti-Semites who claim Jews everywhere are complicit, in the same way that after 9/11, people claim that Muslims everywhere were complicit. And at the same time, far-right groups in the UK exploit the violence to demonize Muslims. And both communities lose out, both the Muslim community and the Jewish community in the UK. All things being considered, they should be working together on forging a path towards peace between their communities. But this is unfortunately not the world in which we're living at the moment. And I think this is this is a pivotal moment, I feel, after this attack, that we need civil society to separate criticism of a regime from hatred towards a people. And look, I completely understand why people have absolutely lost their patience with what's happening in Palestine as a result of Netanyahu's war of fucking terror against the people of Gaza. I completely get that. But taking that and then using that hatred that exists over there and then reflecting it back onto people living here, whether they're Jewish or Muslim, is completely out of order. And something that we don't do for, do we go around punching Americans because Trump is a twat and we don't like him? Do you know what I mean? We don't. We're very. I think we have to acknowledge that we are a little bit hypocritical about all this, and we hold Israel to a higher standard than we do to other countries that have committed horrific acts towards Muslims often. And look at Serbia, what happened in Sarajevo, in Mostar, what happened in Kosovo. Look at what happened in Myanmar, Burma, against the Rohingya Muslims that were there, who were massacred and thrown out the country. Have a look at how China is treating Muslims up in the Xinjiang province up in the very northwest of China, putting the Uyghur Muslims into essentially concentration camps. And I'm not doing whataboutism here, right? We should be equally concerned about all of this stuff. But it is interesting that other countries that do things to Muslim people who are objectively even worse, don't forget what's happening in Yemen and the fact that the Saudis are backing the Yemen, what's left of the Yemeni government, attacks on the Houthis in Yemen. It doesn't get the same sort of outrage as what's happening in Palestine. And I would argue that in many of these cases, it fucking well should. But there just doesn't seem to be the amount of awareness with most people that these things are even happening, because maybe it's not covered in the news as much. But I also think there is a little bit of hypocrisy in all this, that we hold in the same way that we tend to hold people on the left to a higher moral standard than people on the right. We tend to hold Jewish people, Israel, to a higher standard, possibly because of history, possibly because of the torments that Jews have suffered in the past. Don't forget, in the 1300s, the 13th century, Jews were expelled from Britain, what was Proto-Britain, so Anglo-Saxia, whatever the fuck it was called back then. 1492, Jews were expelled from Spain, and the pogroms in Russia at the turn of the last century, and then obviously leading up to what happened during the Second World War. And looking back in history, you're like, well, haven't you learned from these horrible things that have happened to you? But then again, you could turn that on the Chinese. You could say, oh, hang on, China, look at what happened when Japan invaded. The rape of Nanking. I mean, like, looking at the horrible, horrible things that the Japanese invading the Imperial Army did in China. Didn't you learn from that? Didn't you learn from that it wasn't good to be horrible to people? We could turn that on other countries as well that have been horrible towards Muslims, like in Burma, which has been horribly treated for many years. It was a British possession essentially for many years, and then it was under a military junta until a few years in the 2010s, and now it's back under a military junta. You'll think, these people have known what oppression is. Why are they oppressing somebody else? You could look at, if you want to move away from the Islamic world, look at what Sri Lanka did. Look what the governments of Sri Lanka did to the Tamil Tigers. They wiped them out. And by wiping them out, I mean they wiped out the villages in which they lived. So there might have been one Tamil Tiger living in a village in northern Sri Lanka, and the whole village was wiped out in 2010, 2011. Hardly anyone mentions this. And you think, hang on, First of all, the government of Sri Lanka is nominally Buddhist. I mean, these are Buddhists doing this. Same thing in Burma; they're Buddhists as well. But and Sri Lanka came under horrific oppression by the British over the years, and invasions from India that they had to deal with. It was the British who burnt down the Temple of the Tooth, which contained one of the last relics of the original Buddha. I mean, so you'd expect you could use that same argument of like, hang on, guys, you were oppressed in the past. Why are you oppressing people now? For other places that are actively oppressing other minority groups at the moment. So I'm not, look, and the last thing I want to do here is whataboutism. I think what's happening in Gaza is absolutely horrific, and it's right that we should be drawing people's attention to it. I'm just saying at the same time, we do hold Israel to a higher standard. And maybe we should, because, of what's happened in the past. But, and maybe it's right that we feel let down by this country that we hoped would be. It is one of the most tolerant countries. It probably is the most tolerant country in the Middle East. Ironically enough, it's the only country where gay people can walk hand in hand down the street. It's the only country where women get full rights like they don't get in neighboring countries like Jordan or Saudi Arabia or Syria. And there is a plurality of religions that exist there. It's not just Jews. You have there's a Jewish quarter in Jerusalem, but there's also many Muslims live there, Arab Israelis, you've got Armenians, you've got Christians, you've got people from other sects, you've got Ethiopian Christians who live in Israel and are allowed to practice their religion pretty much unencumbered, unlike in other countries around that area where you just wouldn't get away with it. I remember being told when I was on a boat, we pulled into Jeddah in Saudi Arabia. I was on a cargo ship, and the crew were telling me they had to take down. They were Christians from the Philippines and Buddhists from Myanmar, a lot of them, and they had to take down pictures of Jesus and Mary and pictures of Buddha when they came into dock in Jeddah, because if the Saudi authorities found these images, they even in the private cabin of crew members of the cargo ship, they would rip them down and rip them up. One of them had a CD of Metallica, Master of Puppets. The one with the gravestones on it? Yeah, and the Saudi authorities found his CD and ripped up the CD because it was a Christian, what's it called? Iconography. So yeah, one of the most tolerant countries in the region, in that particular region of the world, is acting in the most intolerable way. So I get it, I get it. Maggie Pie, thank you very much for the 50 Swedish krona. That's very kind of you. Hate crimes towards Jews legitimize Israel's existence. Don't blame Netanyahu for that antisemitism. It was already vacant in the fabrics of society. Yeah, okay, Maggie, I'll take that. Yeah, I'm not questioning Israel's existence in any way, shape, or form. That was my entire point. I'm not going to question Pakistan's existence. I'm not going to question Israel's existence. It exists. It is a safe haven for Jews around the world in case, shit gets really bad where they live. They've always got somewhere to go. They know that they can get refugee status. In fact, better than that, they can get instant citizenship pretty much in Israel if they move there. So yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, the hate crimes against Jews have always been there, Maggie. But what I'm saying is that Netanyahu's actions have absolutely added rocket fuel to that anti-Semitism, unfortunately. Paula, thank you very much. I suppose there isn't the theft of land which occurred in the forming of Israel. Well, Paula, talk to a Sikh who never got Sikhistan, who never got the country that they wanted for themselves, a homeland for Sikh people, and asked them about the two holiest shrines being on either side of a border that they did not put in place. If if they live in Amritsar and they live, the Golden Temple, if they want to go and visit their other holiest shrine, they have to cross the border into Pakistan. Which isn't always easy. So yeah, like I say, Britain prides itself on multiculturalism, and people. There was some dickhead yesterday saying, "Oh, look, this is the result of multiculturalism. This attack," and I'm like, if it wasn't for multiculturalism, there wouldn't be a synagogue. We'd have monoculturalism, and we'd all be going to fucking church and dancing the fucking Morris dance and eating boiled fucking beef. I'm not interested in that. Do you know what I mean? But moments like this, I mean, they do really shine a light on the fact that if we're all going to live together on this island, we need to make bolder steps towards working together as communities and having that cross-community dialogue, which unfortunately isn't as prevalent as it once was. And like I said, I mean, 30 years ago when I was shocked to learn that synagogues needed security, here we are 30 years later, I would have thought things might have got better in the intervening time, but actually they haven't. They've got worse. They've got much, much worse. The attacker in this incident wanted to spread fear and to divide communities, and how we respond to what happened matters. And, I think that in situations like this, we need to double down on solidarity. And like I say, opening up those dialogues between the Jewish community and the Muslim community and the wider community in the United Kingdom, I think would, maybe this is me being a woolly fucking liberal, but, I think that would be a way forward that is in the government's, ability at the moment. But, just getting people sitting down to talk about this is difficult at the best of times, and at the moment, again, because of what what most people are seeing as a massive overreach in the response to the October 7th attacks, it makes it even more difficult, But I don't want British people, I don't want Muslim British people, I don't want Jewish British people to double down on that anger and suspicion, and the impact of what happened yesterday. It is going to have a huge effect. The Jewish community in the UK already felt under siege, and with good reason, and now they feel even more so. And this is my opinion, and your mileage may vary, and I don't want to fall out over this, but I do believe that Netanyahu's Gaza war is fueling antisemitism. It just between you and me, it's always been there on the left, right? I mean, you expect it on the far right, you expect it from the neo-Nazis, but I have been in situations where I've got into blazing rows with people who purport to be left-wing. They get a couple of drinks inside them, and they come out with some horrific anti-Semitic trope. And that isn't just a one-off. That's happened quite a lot in my life, a surprising amount. And just like transphobia seems to be acceptable in some quarters of the left, also anti-Semitism seems to be acceptable. And don't forget, under the previous leader of Labour, 2 Jewish MPs, that's half of the MPs that represented Liverpool, Louise Ellman and Luciana Berger, they both, who I shared platforms with, I shared anti-Brexit platforms with, and they both left they left the party. They left the party because of, and both cited anti-Semitism. And then people fired back. No, they're just performance artists or something. They're just saying this to gain sympathy or whatever excuse that they wanted to. But imagine you've got a city, you've got 4 MPs, 2 of them are black, and 2 of them leave, citing racism within your party. You as a white person, are you going to say, no, that's not true? They're talking bollocks? No, believe the victim. Believe the victim. If you have to prove them wrong, but start with the idea that you would not give up something, a movement that in Louise Ellman's case, she had been a part of for 45 years. She had been an elected representative for Labour at that point for almost 40 years. To give up that lifelong commitment to a political cause, that's not something that you just do on a whim. That's not something that you do because you just don't like the leader of the party at that particular one moment in time. A lot of people in Labour stuck it out even though they weren't happy with the leadership. No, that's something else. So yeah, anti-Semitism, unfortunately, it exists. It really fucking does exist. And it's something that we really need to take seriously. And I find that interesting that other forms of bigotry, especially like Islamophobia, is just not tolerated on the left at all in any way, shape or form. But there does seem to be some wiggle room with anti-Semitism, and I do believe that Netanyahu is making that bad situation worse. And don't get me wrong, I don't think that he invented it, like he caused it all. I don't believe that for a second. What I do believe is that the response to what happened on October the 7th, it should have been measured. It should have been targeted. It should have been done in a way that looked like there was actual concern for the men, women, and children of Gaza who had nothing to do with it. Unfortunately, it didn't do that. And in the same way that the goodwill that people felt towards America after 9/11 absolutely evaporated within months because of America's actions, the same thing has happened with Israel, where we should be having sympathy with Israel for what happened on October the 7th, which was horrific. And yet that sympathy has all but evaporated around the world. And I blame Netanyahu for that. Maggie Pie, why is Blair involved in Trump's plan for Gaza? Fuck knows. That's why. I have no idea, Maggie. I find it infuriating that a divisive figure, especially when it comes to the Middle East, such a divisive figure as Tony Blair is anything to do with this, has his fingerprints anywhere near this. I'll tell you what, Toe, right? Go find those fucking weapons of mass destruction. Go and have a look. Go and, go through all the fucking bins in Baghdad that you can find. Go and find the weapons, all right? Once you find those weapons, then you can step forth on the world stage and start interfering again. But until that point, can you fuck off? Can you fuck off? Yeah, thanks. Anyway, so look, I do think that South Park last week captured the situation well, with Netanyahu wrapping himself in Judaism as a shield against criticism, to say that any criticism of the Israeli government or his actions is anti-Semitic, which isn't the case. It's a lot more. I mean, I was going to say it's a lot more nuanced than that, but it's not even that. That's not even nuanced. That is like me criticizing Rishi Sunak and Rishi Sunak firing back saying, well, I'm a Hindu phobe, I just hate Hindus, and I'm like, it's got nothing to do with it. I just think you're a dick. And the challenge is now clear. Criticism of Israel must not turn into anti-Semitism, and defending Jewish communities must not be weaponized into Islamophobia. In the end, it comes down to the principle that we need to protect people, we need to challenge hate, and we need to hold leaders, not ordinary worshippers, not just people on the other side of the fucking planet who had nothing to do with it. We need to hold the leaders accountable, and that's up to the government. That is up to the government to do. Anyway, we're going to go over to the papers now, because obviously they're covering this story in some detail. And then we've got from Woke. Oh God, this is just disgusting. This is the Daily fucking fail today. This is exactly why I hate this newspaper. From woke police chiefs to left-wing politicians, the list of the killer's enablers is legion. They should have blood on their consciousness. This is from Richard Littlecock. Like, fuck off. Woke police chiefs? Left-wing politicians? What the fuck? What the absolute woke police? What? Because he thinks that police chiefs are too woke. We just had to report about the police in the Met after work just coming out with the most horrific Islamophobic remarks and you know, racist remarks. And they're just like, oh yeah, you know, that's fine. They're all woke, you know. Wow. Attacker named as Briton 35 of Syrian descent. He was a British citizen. He wasn't an immigrant. He wasn't a boat person. He wasn't an asylum seeker. An Islamic terrorist went on a barbaric rampage yesterday, killing 2 people at a synagogue in the most sacred day of the Jewish calendar, Yom Kippur. And then we've got this fucking advert. Jesus, go away. Stop it. Act of evil. Jesus, I don't need to see that. Terror at the synagogue. 2 die in horror attack as fears grow of more anti-Jewish violence. Hero rabbi saves countless lives before police shot the maniac. They've got that same picture on a lot of the covers. I'm going to skip past them because that's really grim. Israel blames Starmer after synagogue terror rampage. Attacker of Syrian descent shot dead after killing 2. Just hours later, police allowed protests to go ahead. Now, here's the thing, right? So do you think for a moment that if Israel, if this was a Muslim country and Muslims had been attacked and there was a conservative government in charge and the leader of Pakistan said, this is the fault of Rishi Sunak, this is the fault of Liz Truss, this is the fault of Boris Johnson, right? Do you think that would have been the headline on the front cover of the Telegraph? I really don't think it would be, but there you go. You know, there's a horrific terrorist attack and people die, and then the fucking Telegraph use it as an excuse to have a dig at Starmer for some reason, like he's to blame. William, I'm not afraid to make the changes monarchy needs. This is to do with the family up the road. He did an interview with Eugene Levy, who played the dad in American Pie for some reason. I don't know why he did an interview with him, but he did. Just let me just take the volume up on that a little bit. Now I'm too white. And then cuts to Farage. Security must be reviewed. This is Farage whinging about his security detail has been reduced. Well, you know, he's a multi-millionaire. I'm sure he can afford his own fucking security. Fuck off. Are these the same people who are laughing about the fact that Prince Harry had his security cut? Okay. Bravery of adverts. I'm sure we get more adverts than we used to. UK set for Brexit energy deal to help with EU to help bills. We have this is a really good news story actually at the top left here on the I newspaper. UK set for Brexit energy deal to help with the bills. This is to do with on January the 1st new tariffs or something coming in around the EU, and we've carved out some kind of exception for it. So it should mean that our bills actually come down. Thank you, EU. Sometimes you had to tell David Bowie to shut up, says Brian Molko from Placebo. I would not tell him to shut up. The Showgirl returns over here on the left-hand side. Taylor Swift's new album, Life for Showgirl, which I listened to a couple of times this morning before I got started. I hate to have a crunching gear change of conversation to what we were talking about, because obviously we were talking about something that is incredibly grim and you know, significant. But can I just say we're not going to have a huge row about this, and I will talk about it later on the Friday Night Social tonight, where it's probably more appropriate. But the new album, I think it's a bit mid. Okay, I don't want to lose any viewers, so I will explain myself later at the Friday Night Social. Okay, I just think it's a bit 3 out of 5. You know, it's not Sabrina Carpenter's new album. Put it that way. Okay, back to the papers. The bravery, talking about the bravery of the rabbi and the worshippers, and increased security across the UK after terrorist attacker kills 2 people. And obviously, this is the news story on all of it. Terrorist kills 2 people. Face of hatred. I mean, why would you call your kid Jihad? I mean, did he change his name to that? I mean, what the fuck? Why would you call your kid Holy War? Jesus Christ. And then we've got Financial Times here talking about the attack. What's left of Gaza after Israel's 2-year blitz? If I can just find me bloody pointer here. Here at the top, which would be an interesting read there. It's page 21 on the big read. On the briefing, we've got Bank of England fuels uncertainty over data. Kremlin adapts missiles. Schroders and Lloyd's split. Retailers and rates reprieve. Trump agencies threat. He's threatened to gut agencies he doesn't like during the government shutdown over there. And there was a story that I wanted to draw your attention to, but it's not been covered in any of the newspapers. I thought that it would be on the front cover of the Financial Times there. Japan days away from running Superdry, a favourite beer, after Asahi cyber attack. Wow. And Jaguar Land Rover Lifeline to tackle critical situation. Jaguar Land Rover, the British company that, the company based in Britain, kind of, that the gobshite Farage said he wanted it to fail. He wanted it to fail. I'm going to just try and find this. This is not very professional of me, but I'm going to try and find Reeves has... here we go. So this is a story from the Guardian paper. This is Rachel Reeves could raise 45 billion in taxes in the next budget, which is coming up later. I think it's early next month or the end of this month. Chancellor has ways to cover UK deficit without breaching the spirit of the Labour manifesto. This is a claim made by Morgan Stanley, the US investment bank, who have put out a City report. They expect Chancellor's next month's budget to announce billions of pounds in tax increases to cover a potential 30 billion shortfall in public finances. But they say tax-wise, we can see about 25 billion pounds of measures that don't break the spirit of Labour's manifesto. They're not outright inflationary and can be implemented at a gradual pace. So that's probably going to be the path that she takes after an anticipated productivity downgrade from the Office of Budget Responsibility, which could leave Reeves facing a shortfall against her financial rules of 30 billion. So there's kind of a bit of good news there. I'm hoping that the money that they're going to raise without breaking the spirit of the manifesto will be going after the big companies that don't pay enough tax, or the rich people who don't, pay enough tax, rather than the rest of us. I'm going to jump into the chat now for a little bit. We've got Liebchen saying, "Good morning, everyone. How are we doing today? I'm feeling pretty meh as usual on this damp and dreary Friday." Well, Liebchen, I'm sorry that today's news story wasn't, something that we could really get all riled up about in an amusing way, like when Farage does something fucking stupid. But we will be letting our hair down, what's left of it, and this Friday night at 9:30. So please do join us for the Friday Night Social, where we'll be, cracking open some beers, cracking open some terrible jokes, and just putting the world to rights. It's going to be the first Friday Night Social in a few weeks, so please join us for that. Taylor Swift is someone who can make perfect fitting clothes really quickly. Hey, says a L. Taylor Swift. Jaguar Land Rover hack should be a salutary warning for those advocating for the Big Brother digital ID nonsense. Yeah. Lee says, I liked Phil's video about him discovering he is autistic and his comments about not knowing what social cues were. He just put things down to being introverted and being from Yorkshire. Yeah. And you can join me and Phil at 1:00 today for the agenda. And, as he's autistic and I'm ADHD, I think you can really see the differences in our personalities caused by our neurospiciness. And I've felt for a long time when we've had those kind of discussions, I've been more of the sort of emotional side of things or empathetic side of things, whereas Phil's been more analytical and led by the numbers rather than the donkeys. Surprisingly, BB has been PM 3 times since the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin and Shimon Peres as acting PM. Says Haruhi, sorry. Graham's right breast. It's come out. It's supposed to stay in there, but it's actually they've got a big hole. I've got a big hole, so it's just doing that, and then it flaps open like this, and it annoys me. I'm just gonna get a pin. And put it in. It's pointless anyway. This gilet, this thing has 21 pockets. It has pockets inside pockets. It's got pockets on the insides. It's got a pocket at the back here. It's got a pocket. I could actually put things in. Love it. You can never have enough pockets. It's why you'll always have the gender gap. It's why you always have that, disparity between women and men. It's because women don't get any pockets. Men get all the pockets. True story. Acro Dave said, I don't know what social cues are. I just barged to the front. I think it's social cues. I think it should be CUE, social cues, like, when someone's dropping a hint. I've got people in my life who are very much like that. You can be like crying your eyes out in front of them and they're still telling you about their favorite dinosaur. And I'm like, okay, I'm guessing what this is, but it's just people's brains are different and that's cool. Everyone's a little bit different, but understanding why you react certain ways to certain situations, I think is very important. I will happily share my pockets with the right lady, says Yuri. Go on, you can have some of my. I've got like 18 of them. You can have some. And pockets within pockets within pockets. It's like this waistcoat. It's like the inception of waistcoats. I believe Eugene Levy is doing a travel show, and the meeting with William Wales came as a result of that, which is quite cool. So Eugene Levy cut his teeth at the Second City in Toronto, the comedy night, the comedy venue in Toronto called Second City, and I actually went there and saw Chris Candy, the son of John Candy, and some improv players doing some really funny shit, and I got to meet Chris at the end of it, which was really nice. I mean, he talked about his dad. Is the agenda on at 1:00? Yes, it is indeed. There are dresses with pockets, just not enough of them. Yeah, I think dresses with pockets are cool. I don't know why they don't have them. Do you know what I mean? It just seems a bit weird to me. But there you go. Liam says, just made a big step today, chat. Finally admitted I need help with my cocaine relapse and seeks help and support. I'm glad to hear that you have done that. I've made that step. Liam, that's a really, really important step. And seeking help and support, it will be there if you ask for it, and that's the big step, isn't it? Asking for it in the first place. So well done on realizing that you have a problem, and it's something that I think we all need to be able to reflect on. That if something is becoming a problem and we're just in denial about it, there's a point where we really have to be honest with ourselves and go back to the cave in Delphi in ancient Greece where the oracle lived, and it just said above the cave, know thyself. Know thyself. I know it's cues, Graham. That was a joke, says Acro Dave. People on the spectrum can have a sense of humour. I know. I was joshing with you as well. So yeah, I don't get this. Is it a Russian doll? What's a Russian doll? Oh yeah, my pockets are a Russian doll. My bag weighs a ton, says L. Indeed, we need more pockets. We need more pockets. They do, Graham. Lucy and Yak shirts have pockets. The cave, yeah, the cave where the oracle of Delphi lived back in the day. She had a sign above a cave, and it said, "Know thyself." And I always, know who you are, know why you do stuff. It's like, suss it out. If people look at you weird, try and suss out why they're looking at you weird. People do it to me all the time. What's this guy on? What's he talking about? By the way, look at the price of assets. They are soaring. Gold and property increase in value. The rich accumulate excess cash and lock it in hard, secure assets to protect it from market volatility, says Clippy. Yeah. Clippy, you're absolutely right. It's the rich are getting richer at a geometric rate. It is just insane at the moment. And the rest of us have just not seen our lives improve measurably for a very, very long time. So there you go. Anyway, so I'm going to leave it at that. We've just gone over the hour mark. I've got to go and record a show for Alex's channel, which will be Political X on Sunday. So immediately after doing Morning Brew on Sunday, I'll be shunting you over to watch that. It's going to be pre-record, but they're doing that thing where they have a live premiere. So please join us for that on Sunday. But before then, 1 o'clock, me and Phil putting the world to rights with the agenda. We'll be talking about the Labour Party conference, how we felt about it, how we felt about the speeches that were made. And then this evening at 9:30, as already mentioned, I'll be talking Tay-Tay and other stuff that's happening on the Friday night social. So please join us for that. And before I go, I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who's watched this morning, everyone who's chimed in the chat. Thank you for being respectful. It was quite a heavy issue to talk about today, so thank you for being respectful. And in that regard, and thank you for the super chats. Really appreciate that. One little tiny request before I go. Please give us a like. We like a like on this channel. And if you give us a like, we'll like it. And we'll like you even more than we already do. And we already like you quite a lot. So give us a like. Okay, until next time, thank you so much for watching. And hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye. My button didn't work. I'm going to have to do that again. So, until next time, I'll just say thank you very much for watching. Hello, good evening, welcome, and I hope goodbye. Oh, it worked. Haha.